stock down. I'll go ahead and continue on with this one.
Okay.
I started with Freddie Montero from Seattle, playing against what on paper looked like a pretty subpar Real Salt Lake side. He got one shot on target and had 4 bad touches that led to turnovers, which was the most of any player of either team. And you know that it's tough to get going when you can't keep the ball, right? So Seattle are now scoreless in 2 games without Rui Diaz. He himself has now had 106 minutes, 0 goals. Not a great look, but for somebody who was brought in to be the Rui Diaz replacement or the backup to Rui Diaz or whatever, he's not showing real hot right now. So I know strikers are going hot and cold, but if he's not going to heat up, Adeniran has to heat up. Will Bruin has to heat up. Somebody got to start scoring goals for this team, or Seattle are in for it. Because I don't know how long Rui Diaz is going to be out, but man, if you can't play without Rui Diaz, might say goodbye to that playoff streak. Bold prediction.
Ooh. Yeah, I think they'll be okay. That is definitely a bold prediction, though, if you think that's the case.
I also want to put an honorable mention out there before I go to my second player of every defensive-minded player for Inter Miami, because God, that was awful to watch. It hurt me watching that game with a defensive-minded coach in Phil Neville. What?
Not so defensive-minded anymore.
He's not any minded. He's just dumb. Okay, my second one is out of Columbus. Milos Degenek, center back for Columbus. After being up a man for a long time in that game, Degenek lost the mark on the game-tying goal against San Jose. He lost Calvo, let him run free, and gave him a free header in the box in the 95th minute while up a man. He didn't make a tackle all game, according to Who Scored. And even while being up a man, you could tell they struggled to just contain this San Jose attack. Last year, Columbus was very, very poor in closing out games and being mentally strong at the end of games. I thought that him coming in, especially being on a team that had just been a consistent winner, knowing how to close games out and get results to lead them to titles, would have at least helped take a step towards that issue. But clearly there's still some work that needs to be done. And I'm not saying that Columbus are in the mud, but this is clearly a massive, massive problem that they had last year. And it seems to be continuing on, leaking into this year. If they want to have a shot at finishing anywhere near your prediction, they're going to need to clean that up real quick.
They'll clean it up. Don't worry about it. They got to get some chemistry in the back line. There's a bit of turnover, but they'll clean it up. I got faith in them. They're still on 4 points out of 2 games. That's not a bad start.
All right, I'll hear what you've got then.
All right, so one of mine is kind of similar. So I ended up going along the same lines of the Inter Miami defense, except I landed on one specific player. I went with DeAndre Yedlin here. So I said if anybody watched MLS in 2014, blacked out for the next 8 years, and then watched the last game from Inter Miami, they would be absolutely shocked to see DeAndre Yedlin's performance. I don't think that he was necessarily like the problem area for Miami. That's definitely not true. It was a plethora of players who were not performing. I think the reason that I ended up landing on DeAndre Yedlin is because I figured his stock was higher than the rest of the players in the back line for Miami. So I feel like his stock would take the bigger hit based on that last performance. This is a guy that is, whether we like it or not, in and around the men's national team, which is, in a position where the men's national team is arguably the deepest, probably said something. And I think him going out there and giving up 5 goals to Austin, again, as I mentioned last episode, the team that scored the least amount of goals last season, it's not great. So, again, I don't think he was the worst guy in the back line. I think guys like Breck Shea were definitely worse, but I just think his stock was higher than the rest of them, so his took the larger hit.
I think we need to stop thinking about this Austin team as the Austin team from last year. And I understand that there is, lowest scoring team in the league automatically dropping 5 goals on you is not a good look. But this Austin team is not the Austin team from last year. It's not. So it's and I get it. It's a bad look on paper, but if you watch the game, two completely different teams.
Yeah, I get it. It's definitely not the same Austin team from last year, but it is a majority of the same players, I would say, in terms of like the attack. I get that they've had a bit more time to gel together,
Yep.
but I still think week 2 after the season where Austin was the lowest scoring team, I still think it holds a bit of weight.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to move on to see what your other one was.
My other one is a callback to week 1. So if you haven't listened to week 1's review, listen back. Because my pick is Jacob Schaffelberg. So
that's rough. He got hurt.
Listen, I know he got hurt, and you talked about it last week where Schaffelberg had a pretty bad week 1, and we talked about how he was playing out of position. It's a little tough to give him a tough time on it. He's not really a defender. And I figured I'd give him the benefit of the doubt for week 1. Could be just, a bad week, could be opening day jitters. But week 2 against Red Bull, he was really bad again. And I get it. That's same thing I mentioned before. He's playing out of position. It's tough. I would put more so of the blame on Toronto, but at the end of the day, he's still on the field playing, and he can't do the job in that position. Toronto needs to realize this and shift away from it. But he came off at halftime, but all 4 of Red Bull's goals came while he was on the field. So he came off, and then Red Bull didn't score any more goals. So I think again, I understand he came off injured. It's tough to like kick him while he's down, quote unquote. But I just think he had another bad week. His ratings were not good on SofaScore or Who Scored. They were some of the lowest ratings, if not the lowest, for Toronto in that last game. So hopefully Toronto fixes it and stops playing him as a defender. But
I said they're kind of screwed because Crescito has gone back on his word. He said he was going to come as soon as he could, and now he's like, I'll come in July with Lorenzo. So they're going to have to go 4 months with him at left back.
That's not great. He has not looked good at left back to start the season.